Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Welcome to another episode of the Voice of Influence podcast. I am your host, Fong, and with me on this journey is, of course, the happiest person on earth, my co-host, Ms. Stacy McPherson. Now, on this show, our aim is to break down the barriers of public speaking, allowing you to succeed and becoming the voice of influence. Stacy, we're back again.
Yay! Woo! Awesome. I'm
So,
so excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah. So the last couple of episodes, we talked about the importance of public speaking. We talked about fear, confidence, the importance of improv. So today we're gonna be diving into the two subjects of body language and, of course, preparation. Two things that are absolutely vital when it comes to public speaking. For you, what's your method of preparing? Like, lots of people have different little secrets and different little things that they do so that they're prepared to go up on stage, they're prepared to give a presentation. What's your secret?
Okay, so number one, I have to pick a topic that I am passionate about. If it's just something that someone said, do this, I have to twist it, change it, adapt it to where I am just so excited to give this talk, this speech that I just can't wait. So that's number one for preparation. It's just like make it my own and make it powerful for me. What about you, Fong?
Well, definitely. If it's not something I care about, it's really, really hard to talk about that subject. I mean, I think I talked about this the last episode where they told me that the whole theme of the conference is water conservation. Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna do a whole talk on water conservation. However, I was able to talk about leadership and mindset and how those people, like for instance, I think it was Bill Gates who was able to come up with certain things for water conservation. So I do have a little bit of linkage there with regards to leadership and water conservation. So it made my preparation a lot easier by being able to still talk about my expertise, yet linking it to whatever is relative to the conference itself.
Oh, so good. Yes, I love that. That's exactly right. Yeah, so tell us some more of your tips and tricks, Fong.
Well, with regards to preparation, like lots of people go, okay, we're gonna write out the speech. I'm gonna sit there and memorize. I'm gonna recite and read it again and again. I'm gonna look at the mirror. Some of those things is what we hear lots of people do. For me, I hate looking at the mirror and practicing. I can't stand it. Like the more I look at the mirror and practice, the more I go, my arms look weird. My head looks weird. I don't like this part. And I start forgetting all the stuff I wanted to say. So I can't watch myself on the mirror. So I pretend that I'm on stage. I'm standing somewhere there's no mirrors whatsoever, but there's lots of pictures and lots of photos. And I make sure as I walk around the room, I'm looking at the eyes of the posters, of the photos, so that it makes it feel like I'm making eye contact. Now, it was funny because one of my clients took that way beyond. He went out there to his room and cut out eyeballs, not pairs of eyes, but eyeballs, and posted them around his room. And he made sure he looked at each eyeball before he finished his speech. So, one of my tips, firstly, is to not use the mirror, but to walk around and pretend you're talking to people as you're looking at posters, photos, and whatnot. So, that's how I get comfortable. What about yourself?
That's amazing. Yes, I agree with you about seeing yourself while you're practicing. One of the ways that I've done it is taken my phone and videoed me, but not the selfie way. You turn it around so you can't see yourself. You just make sure you're in the frame. So then I put it up that way, and I try to stand so that I'm like using, all of my upper body and my hands and so forth, and I record it, and then watching it back is okay for me. It's just while I'm practicing, I don't want to see myself. So that's one of the ways. And then I've used your technique as well, where I listen to it only and just listen to the audio and just say, okay, how's my vocal variety? How's my tone? How's my pausing? And then I also listen for my inflection, and does my voice sound genuine? Or does it sound kind of sing-songy? You know how we sometimes get into that like rhythm. And so it's like just trying to make it as natural as possible. And then also, then I switch it, and then I only watch So same with what you did. And it's so powerful because if you're just focusing in on one thing, just like, okay, how is this thing? It's a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier to focus on. So yeah, those are some of the things I do.
I envy you because you're able to do both at the same time. And to this day, it still bugs the heck out of me. And I found an excuse. I found an excuse. I was listening to a lot of podcasts about actors and how they cannot watch their own performances. I'm like, that's me. I'm an actor. I can't watch my own performance because, I'm too self-critical, blah, 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 blah.
Uh,
So another thing is the memorization. Lots of people feel that they have to memorize word for word. So they go and they wordsmith the entire presentation and they go, ooh, that sounds good. Oh, I need to say that. And what I found for myself, because I've done that before, is that I'm so fixated on how it has to sound perfectly that it makes it sound so mechanical and makes it sound so inauthentic that I can't relate to it anymore. So for you, how do you prep to make sure that you know what you're going to say next so that
yes.
it's not memorized?
Well, one of the things I've noticed is we have a written voice that's our voice, and we have a spoken voice that's our voice. And it's quite different. And so if you write out a speech and then read it and memorize it, you're actually speaking your written voice. You're not speaking your spoken voice. And so what I've done when I'm actually preparing the speech is I don't write the speech. I speak the speech. So I get my headlines, like my topics, and I write them all down. And then I get my audio record button and I audio record myself making my speech. And then I do voice to text. And so then I have my speaking voice on my paper instead of my written voice on my paper. So that's a little bit of an insight into how I get my voice, my authentic, and then it's going to come out more authentic, right? Because it's like how I'm comfortable speaking.
Mhm. Awesome. For myself, I have tried a few different methods. One coming up with just point form stuff and then just talking, just to see if I have the right timeline, to see if I have enough stories there or enough content, and to fill that space that's needed. And the other way is writing the whole thing. But instead of rereading it over and over again, I actually write it once and I put away and I never look at it again. Because once I wrote it once, I kind of remember where things go, and then I just recite from memory on what I remember writing. And
Wow.
then by doing that, I know I'm going to be modifying as I go because I don't speak the same way as I write. So it actually flows better as I keep on going. And then if I screw up somewhere, I'll just go back to the beginning and I'll start talking again. If I screw up here, I'll go back to the beginning and then sometimes I would go, why don't I start in the middle here and then see if I could get to the end? Because lots of people will start from the beginning, coming back and forth. Their beginning is great because they memorize that so well, they prep that so well, and then it starts deteriorating as they get further along. So I like to try and recite or practice paragraph by paragraph, and I could jump back and forth so that I won't lose my place as easy. And also I know each part well.
Yeah.
Now, for you, timeline, because timeline sometimes is very, very important. Some stages when you go on to, they go, you only have 5 minutes. Some places you only have 10 minutes. How do you play with that? And how do you make sure that the presentation you have is not going to go over time or not fill the time?
Exactly right, because it can be adaptable. You can get on stage and you've got yours down to the minute, and then they say, hey, times they don't have enough time because of the other speakers, and so they'll say, oh, can you cut yours back 5 minutes or cut it back 3 minutes or something like that, and you're just like, okay. So what I do is I chunk my speech, so I have it in like I know if I tell this story, and I've told it a lot of times because I like to really practice, and it may be something that I've used in other things as well. So it's one where I'm pretty sure if I start this story, I'm going to end it in this many minutes because I'm so familiar with how I tell it. And so I chunk my speech to where I know my intro is about this long. I know this story is about this long. And so then I can add and remove stories or different key concepts as I need to. And so instead of one of the times you were, I think, in the room, Fong, where we watched a speaker who stared at the timer and said, is that right? Do I only have this many minutes left? And so yes, you have to know, you have to do it and make it fluid and comfortable, because you don't want your audience to know you're scrambling to fit in that last thought, or that you took a whole section out and now it doesn't have a cohesive theme. Like, you've got to be adaptable, right? What
Exactly.
about you, Fong?
For me, it was one of those things where one of my coaches says you have to learn and prep in beignets. And I sat there and go, wow, that sounds delicious. What is it? And he goes, no, 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 it's not a baguette or it's not a pastry. It's beignets. It's little short stories that you kind of piece together and whatnot. And those beignets can be longer or shorter. So exactly what you said. I have stories where I can say that same story in 5 minutes or that same story in 10 minutes, depending on how much more I want to add to it, how much more I want to expand on the descriptions and all that kind of stuff. I know how much I can play with it and which stories to put in and whatnot. If I have those stories and my intro and my conclusion already kind of set, then it comes down to, okay, how much of the pausing, how much of the ad lib may I have during a presentation, and how much of the body gestures and the walking around and hand movements and all that kind of stuff ties into that as well. So what I like doing is if I know that I'm given 9 minutes to do a presentation, I'm going to time myself at 8 minutes and have that as a countdown. And then I'll just go. Once I hear the alarm go off, if I still have like a whole paragraph to go, I know how much I need to adjust. But if I stop before the alarm goes off, I know that I have a whole minute of buffer that I haven't even touched yet. So therefore, like I could play around with it as long as I practice it correctly.
That's awesome. That's really good. I love how specific you were. This is so helpful for our audience to listen to how someone does this, because people who don't have a lot of experience speaking don't even realize that that happens. You know what I mean? They think, oh, they told me I had 14 minutes. I have 14 minutes.
I had one scenario where I was told I had 3 minutes to share a story. And then I got up on stage and the host leaned over before I started talking. He's like, 35 seconds, 35 seconds, go. Okay. Ah.
That's the worst. Oh my gosh.
It was fun. It's all good. And it was a great experience. When it comes to preparation and preparing and practicing, would you say you go 50%, 100%, 110%, or variety?
Explain what you mean by how much you give to it.
Yes, when you're prepared, like when you're
Oh,
reciting or
oh yes,
practicing that thing. Do you give
yes. Oh,
100%, 110,
okay.
50%?
Yes. Well, I do have a thing where I exaggerate everything. Like, I make it over the top. It's one of my processes where I say, okay, I'm going to make it as kind of little and small, and then I'm going to make it as big. And I even warn my family when I'm doing it. Okay, for those of you who don't know, I have 7 children, and I will tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be practicing this speech, and I might be like yelling because
I'm
it's
fine. Don't come and help me. I'm okay.
exactly. Because I have a speaking mentor who said that if you practice over the top and then you bring it down, you're so much more comfortable with more than you would be otherwise. What
Exactly.
about you? Tell us about
Oh,
yours.
totally agree. I like to do a variety of it. So if I do 110%, 120%, I know that when I'm doing it live, it's gonna come down a little bit more, right? I'm not gonna speak as fast as I would, or maybe I won't be speaking as slow as I would, depending on what the environment is and all that kind of stuff. And also the gestures. My gestures would not be as big if I was on stage. However, if I practice really big, it's still gonna look big when I'm on stage or doing something live on a webinar or whatnot. When it
Yeah.
comes to the 50% stuff, is more of a mind thing. So for instance, I might go jogging, and during my jog, I know I'm going to be jogging for 20, 30 minutes. And if I know my presentation is, let's say, 10 minutes long, mentally I could recite my poem or my presentation 3 times by the time I finish my run. So on a subconscious level, I know I have the right amount of stuff in the right amount of timeline, but I'm not doing all the gestures as I'm doing my job, right? So I do a combination of both. Some way over the top so that it comes down a little bit, but still look big, and sometimes just a mental note as to, yes, I have the material. I know I could kind of go off a little bit, but still be on track. So that's why I do a little bit of combinations.
Oh, so good. So good. So what are the aspects of vocal variety do you think are the most important in your opinion?
I think vocal variety is very, very important. And I'm sure everybody could relate when they think about a teacher that they've had before or a professor, especially those who are in those left-minded type of classes like engineering or accounting, where man, those professors are completely monotone. I had professors who was talking the whole hour and a half in one tone, and it was really, really tough to stay awake. So why is it so important to have vocal variety? Because you don't want to put your audience to sleep. That's why it's so important. There's lots of different types of vocal varieties, highs, lows, pitch, rate, and all that kind of stuff. And it comes down to energy as well. So I know you have a few modalities that you can share about vocal variety. Share with us those things.
Okay, so a lot of people think that they need to kind of stick with one way of speaking because that's their way of speaking. But if you want to have the most impact and also be as interesting as possible to your audience, you want to vary that. So one way of talking is called friend, where you're speaking very casually and very comfortably. Your voice is a little more soft and gentle, and you can throw in a few ums and a few like things like that, because it makes you more relatable. So that's one that you could talk in. But if you talked in friend the whole time, you'd probably lose some people. And it wouldn't, if you have a powerful message to share and you stay in the friend modality, it wouldn't be as impactful. You want to vary it. So as you're introducing your speech and as you're closing your speech, you can use friend because that's where you want to connect and build rapport. But when you're sharing the inspirational part or the motivational part, you want to change your voice, the way that you use your voice. And you'll have to tune into the Voice of Influence course if you want to know the specifics, because it's powerful. It's so one of the people who attended our course last time said, hey, everything that you guys have been sharing has been great, but the vocal modalities, he said, this is gold. He really, really liked it. So
Yeah, I totally agree because it's very interesting that when you start paying attention to it, you sense that, oh, this person's swapping over to this modality and this modality during their presentation, and they may have an overall feel as to what type of speaker they are, but if you really pay attention, they swap from here to there to here to here, and it's so much more impactful because if you can imagine, when you say if a person speaks in friend mode the whole time, then when it comes to the, hey, I'm going to encourage you to do something, if you like, it's okay if you don't. Well, it's no longer impactful anymore, right? You need to really change your life and be more healthy. But if you don't want to, it's okay. We're all friends here. It just doesn't have that same impact.
exactly.
However,
Well
however,
said.
if you're stuck on coach mode the entire time, man, that introduction is gonna be tough to accept because like they're like, who do you think you are talking to me like that? So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah. Oh, so true. So true. Yeah.
How do you practice different modalities or different like vocal high, lows, rate, pitch? How do you do that?
Okay. So I actually I've taught a course where it was a more of a smaller course, just a 2-day course for public speaking. And I had the participants bring a children's storybook with them to the course. And then I asked them to start reading it, and I would throw out a word while they were reading it. And I was like, read it at a 10 level, like read it and with volume. Okay, so I threw out 10. So then they'd have to read it so loud. And then I would say, okay, now, and I would just throw out various like pausing. I want you to focus on pausing on this page. And so then they would focus on pausing. And so just by having it be something as cute and funny and easy to read as a children's book, and then throwing in various aspects of it. And so I'm participating too, and I'm throwing in like all of these different things, because what happens is your brain can't consciously focus on all of the elements of vocal variety and body language and all of these things all at once. Our conscious brain can't concentrate on all of it. So we've got to teach ourselves to do it in a natural, reflexive kind of way using our subconscious. And so the more we practice it and the more we emphasize different aspects, it goes into our subconscious, and then when we need it, it can come out. So like, for example, if you were to take a figure skater, like the twirls and the loops and on the ice, they're amazing. Like, if you were to ask them when they're doing their best, are you thinking about your technique? And the answer would be no. It's all being delivered to them as they need it, and they're in that flow state. And so that's how we need to be able to speak. That's the way it can be the most natural, the most authentic, and the most impactful, is if we've practiced enough to make it be part of us, so then it just comes out when we need it.
Yeah, totally agreed. Myself, I've had this scenario where I had a performance, and this is a singing performance where I had to dance, and I memorized those steps 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. When I saw it later, I'm like, man, that looks so stilted and boring and so stiff. And I realized you have to really practice it so much and then let go so that it's free
Yeah.
flow, which is
Yeah.
what you were talking about. If you practice the highs and lows, the stress levels and the low stress levels and the high and the pitch and the rate and all that kind of stuff in different varieties, then you know you can access that when it needs to be accessed. And after a while, when you start looking at your speech or you start uh, reciting your presentation, you could pinpoint this point I need to have emphasis. This point I need to be softer. This point, and then you could piece it together a lot better because you've had that experience of practicing it. So, for instance, with highs and lows, or rate of speaking, fast and slow, or energy level from low and high, you could do this with all three of these things. Have your partner, your child, have somebody yell out numbers, right? As you're reading that kid's book and
Yeah.
go, okay, 10, okay, high energy, 1, low energy. And then your kid goes, well, 2, and then you have to change your rate and all that kind of stuff. So you can make it fun with your family by practicing. For myself, I also have this thing where reading storybooks to your child.
Mm.
And personally, I really hate the sound of my voice just reading because I'm not a very good reader. So therefore, I purposely make weird sounds as I'm reading and different voices just to make me feel better. But it makes it entertaining for the child. So therefore, that might be a way of doing it. Coming up with different ways of reading a story allows you to really exercise that muscle of vocal variety. What other techniques do you have?
Oh, I love that one. I love reading stories. If you get comfortable with speaking in different accents and with different, changing your voice to reflect different characters in your story, you bring it alive. I used to attend a storytelling festival with my daughter where we would go and listen to these amazing storytellers. There were the ones that would tell a story like, today I went to the store and then I went to do this, and there was that sing-songy kind of voice, and that would put you to sleep. But there were ones who lived the story, like you believed they were the characters. They used different voices for each ones. I'm sure you've all heard a book on tape. Harry Potter is a good one where they just change their voice for every single character, and it's amazing. Yeah, so
And,
good.
and this can all come back to the importance of improv again. Because
Yeah.
improv gives you the opportunity to play different characters on the spot, to use different accents on the spot. Whether you're good at that accent or not, you have to try and figure out a way to do it. And as you do improv more and more, you're going to find that you could add that vocal variety to your presentations.
Oh, so true. So true. And improv is the way to just really break those boundaries and just get it all out there and practice all of the different things. And then it just comes into your speech when you need it. And so
Now, I know you also have a few different exercises for people when it comes to vocal variety, enunciations, pronunciations, and memorizations and stuff like that. Share with us a few of those exercises before we wrap this episode up.
okay, I'd be happy to. So we've got tongue twisters. So how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And so practicing these and actually making it faster and faster. So I have one that I practiced. There's a hole in the wing and the filly and the hair and the word on the toe and the foot on the leg and the frog and the bump on the log and the hole in the bottom of the sea. So I practiced that one a lot so that I could get really, really fast. And then other ones where I practice that it's more slower and melodic. And so just making it be difficult. Those, if you Google tongue twisters, which is so fun to do because there are so many different ones where they're just really challenging. So do that and then practice them. And if you can get it faster, what happens is your brain gets better and better at wrapping around those words and making them more clear and concise, so that even when you're speaking emphatically or quickly, the words still come out clearly.
Awesome. So now you all understand why I didn't do that example, because I can't do what she just did. So, all right. And anything else we want to share about vocal variety and preparation?
Oh, I think we nailed it, Fong.
Good.
I think we nailed it.
Awesome. So, to the next time, we're gonna have some more chat about voice of influence, and then certain tips and skill sets that we can implement into our daily lives. So we'll tune in next time. Remember, she's Stacy. My name is Fong, and you can speak confidently. Then you are able to have a voice of influence. We'll see you later.